Okay, the recording has started. So if anybody has any questions, let's get the questions out of the way first. Then we will talk about a specific thing that I wanted to talk about. I hope everybody can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today, okay, let me just give you a few minutes to come up with a question. Does anybody have any question about the semiconductor behavior that we talked, that was there in the last lecture?
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
sir, can you discuss the nature of the output in the fifth question, the last
Fifth,
assignment?
fifth question, last assignment, you mean the one we say the which talks about what? The
Sir, there's a
rectifier or
res-
the characteristic? Which one?
the other one, the resistor and a capacitor in parallel in series with the diode.
Well, what is there to discuss? You mean the nature of the behavior? That frankly is the solution to that problem in a way is actually the answer is in the next lecture. Okay, I already have uploaded one lecture today, but I will also upload the other lecture also today. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you more lectures to listen to for the whole week. But let me just put both lectures together so that I can listen to them in your own sweet time whenever you find time. The second lecture actually deals with this circuit in some detail. So the answer is in that lecture. Okay. But the real point was not the answer. The real point was how would you write a program to get this done? So do you have any questions about that? Because I don't really want to discuss that at length now because you will find lecture 10 actually has that in some detail. Okay. So I've uploaded lecture 9 today in the morning. I will upload lecture 10 today or tomorrow morning so that you can listen to both whenever you feel like. And that will be all for this week. For this week, you will have just those two lectures to worry about. And of course, the class on Thursday. Okay, let me just go back to a previous problem sheet where we talked about a programming problem, the Fourier series one. Let's do one thing. So you can all see my terminal right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm just going to use Python to show you how the square wave response goes for this parallel resonance circuit. We talked about that in the last class, but I'm going to try to show you how you would code this ideally using NumPy. Now, I'm aware that all of you are not really comfortable with NumPy, which is fine. You can use whatever language you want to. And many of you have already submitted the solution. I just wanted to show you a way in which you can do this real quick using NumPy, which is frankly not really available in most other programming languages. So that could be a good advertisement. If you don't know NumPy yet, or if you haven't learned it thoroughly as in despite being taught in the last semester, at least that's for the BSMS students, this is good advertisement that you should really learn this fast because it actually makes a lot of things very easy. So what I will do is start with a standard mantra that we have. We import numpy as np, and because we want to see the output, so these are our standard mantras whenever we want to use numpy and matplotlib to do plotting for us. Now, let me point out that the problem that we really had was something like this. A square wave u of t was essentially something like this. We have already talked about this in the last class. We have also said that the response that a parallel resonance circuit has to a sinusoidal frequency, and that's very important, to a single sinusoidal frequency of the form e to the j omega t. Of course, that really means that you have to take either the real part or the imaginary part to get to the actual answer. But for this, you get V0 by Vi is given by if you want the answer in terms of frequencies, it should be very easy to write it in terms of frequencies also, because this is just what it is going to be, right? Since we're talking about ratios, the extra factor 2 pi, which omega has, so omega is 2 pi f, omega 0 is 2 pi f0, so that just cancels out. Now, one mistake that many of you have done in the program, those of you who have done it, essentially is this: you have used the fact is given by this. And use this as an additional factor. So instead of V of t, this is a V in t, what you have done is V out t. It's something like this, 4V0 by pi. Okay, sine, let's say, 2 pi ft by square root of 1 plus q square into f by f0 minus f0 by f whole square, plus sine 3 times 2 pi ft. The 2 pi is simply just a matter of the fact that you're using frequencies, not angular frequencies. So you have to multiply by 2 pi to get the angular frequency. By 3 by square root of 1 plus q square. Then instead of f, you have put in 3f by f0 minus f by f0 by 3f whole square. And so on. And summed it up. Of course, you can't sum up infinite number of terms, so you have only summed up a finite number of terms, which is fine. Because if you sum up large enough number of terms, you're going to get a pretty accurate representation of what the output is going to be like. But my question to you is, can anybody spot what is wrong with this particular result that we have used here?
The phase factor.
What?
Phase factor.
The phase, right. All we have done is we have taken the amplitude. V0 by Vi is this. The magnitude of V0 by Vi gives us the ratio of the amplitudes or the ratio of RMS values. Fine. So if you were only interested in one term without a summation, then this factor would have been enough to tell you what the amplitude is like. But when you are actually adding up several terms, then each of these V0 by Vi's will have a different phase, right? 1 plus j, it's not just the magnitude which is important in a complex number, also its phase is important. And so when you multiply that by sine omega t, sine 3, thrice omega t, sine 5 omega t, etc., If you don't take into account the phases, then when you add them together, you're going to actually make a mistake. Now, so that is very important. You have to take into account the phase as well. Now, that sounds like a pretty complicated thing to do, but the first thing that I will tell you is this. Instead of using the V of t, the sine omega t plus sine 3 omega t by 3 and so on, you could just as well use this. With the proviso that in the end you will use the imaginary part. Right? Because our original Fourier series has sine omega t, sine 3 omega t by 3 and so on. That will be the imaginary part of this complex exponential voltage. And so the output that you really have should be something like this. I'm just writing it in terms of omega instead of f, just to avoid the extra factor of 2 pi in every one of those terms. But that's pretty easy to sort of rewrite. So that's the contribution from the e to the j omega d term. The e to the 3j omega d term contributes this. Due to the 5j omega d term, I can keep on going and adding up more and more terms. But basically, this is all that it is. And so on. So now, how do you propose that we actually implement this on a computer? This is a sum that you really want to figure out. And then, in the end, take its imaginary part after you do the summation. If you want to sum this up on a computer, how would you make the computer do it?
So do a loop.
Yeah, you would need to write a loop, of course. But would you take the imaginary part first? Would you use complex numbers in the computer itself, or would you use imaginary numbers, take the imaginary part first and deal with real numbers? Yes?
Generally, we would take the imaginary part and then deal with the real numbers.
Okay. But what if the computer could do it for you? Python actually handles complex numbers very nicely behind the scenes and very efficiently. So all you could do is just sum up using the complex expressions, which are actually simpler. And then in the end, take the imaginary part. Okay, that's point number one. Instead of trying to write this, you can of course take the imaginary part of each of these and work out what the expression is. So you get rather complicated looking expressions involving signs with phase shifts which depend on the frequency and so on. So different frequency phase shifts for different terms, and you have to add all of them together. All that is fine. All I'm saying is, instead of doing that, why don't you give Python the complex exponential and this complex ratio to calculate and sum up, and then finally ask Python to give you the imaginary part. It's pretty easy. That way you don't have to spend a lot of time recalculating the results. After all, you're making the computer work. Why not make it work for you even more? Okay. Now, by the way, it's not only Python which can handle complex numbers. Fortran handles complex numbers very well. So those of you know, Fortran should really be doing that. But the real point is I want to see an output waveform. So what I need is a bunch of times. Remember, waveform is of course a function of time, right? So what I need is a bunch of different times for each of which I need to calculate this sum. Okay. So I get a V here, a V here at this time, at this time. Okay, I'm symbolically breaking up my timeline into points, discrete points. At each of these points, I'm going to calculate this sum and then plot the value of the voltage against the time. That's the real aim. Okay. Now, you should realize one thing. What this means is that if you were thinking in terms of loops, it would involve two loops. One loop which will run over all possible values of time. So suppose I want to take time steps of say 0.1 times the time period. So 0.1 t, 0.2 t, 0.3 t, and so on for say 3 or 4 time periods or 5 time periods. Let's say. Let's take a look at a range of time, and for each of those time values, I need to do this sum, which involves another loop. So it's a loop within a loop scenario. That's what you have to do. Okay. So if you use basic Python or basically any programming language, you can just write a loop which will give you different values of t, and for each value of t, write a loop which will sum up these individual terms and give you the answer. Now, that is perfectly all right. So anybody who has done that, full marks. Okay, that's exactly what you wanted, what you needed to do. All I want you to demonstrate today is that there is a much easier way, not easier necessarily, but much shorter way. And ultimately, because it's shorter, it's actually easier as well to use NumPy to do this for you. Okay. But for this, what you have to realize is that what you are adding, so for each time point, you have to do this sum, right? So one possibility could be, I'm just demonstrating with 4 time points. So you have the n equal to 1 term, n equal to 3 term, n equal to 5 term, and so on. Suppose you could calculate the n equal to 1 term, put it in an array. Then 3 term, put that in another array. The 5 term, then put that in another array. 7 term, then put that in another array. So these are for different harmonics. Each array, whatever t value you have, so 9, put that in another harmonic. And then once you have that, if you could add these together, that will give you the sum. Is everybody okay with this? With what I've said here? Okay. Now, how many arrays do you think we will need for that? For just this much? Let's say what I've drawn here. So I will need one array for the time values, whatever time values I need. But here, suppose I want to calculate only up to 5 harmonics. There is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. I need to calculate for that. How many arrays do I need?
We can use one 2-dimensional array.
Exactly. You can use one 2D array. So instead of using 5 2D, 1D arrays, which this looks like the way I've described it, you could use one 2D array. But in this case, 5 rows and 4 columns, although that's really not the right way to talk about it, but we can think of 2D arrays more or less like matrices. So 5 rows, 4 columns. Okay. But how would you calculate this 2D array? Okay, let me just ask you one thing first. Suppose the t values, I'm just using an example. Suppose the t values were 1, 2, 3, and 4. And think of this as sort of coordinates. Time values are 1, 2, 3, 4, and the n values are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So what are the values of n and t here for this point? 1 and 1, of course. For this one, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, right? Then you have 3 and 1, 3, 2, P3, P4. I'm just writing it down explicitly because I'm going to do something which I don't think you have seen before, although I may be wrong. Have you seen the mesh grid operation in NumPy? Mesh grid function? Yes, anybody? Sorry, I missed a step. That would be here. These would be here. These points will be 7, 1, 7, 2, 7, 3, 7, 4. These the last row will have 9, 1, 9, 2, 9, 3, 9, 4. Now, this is just simple Cartesian coordinates, nothing else. So the point is, once you know the value of n, the value of t at one point, you can use the value of n and value of t to calculate the particular result that you need. And then you can add up over all possibilities. Okay. So the question I had for you is, have you studied mesh grid in your this thing? In your NumPy courses before?
No, sir.
Okay. So this is just a quick way of getting this calculation done. Let me just show you how this works. First, just as an example, let's just say I have a teas array, which is pretty straightforward. All I do is, for the timing, let's just do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different t values. I've just put them in. Let's say harmonics. Let's say I want 5 harmonics. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. 5 is too few really to get a good result, but now what I was trying to show you with my rather bad attempt at this lattice is basically this. Note that the H values are, say here, the harmonic number is 1, 1, 1, 1 everywhere. Then you have 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 7, 7, 7, 7, 9, 9, 9, 9. So basically, each point has a different lattice, a different coordinate. But if you look at just the x coordinates or just the y coordinates, they keep on repeating in different ways. So let me just show you how that can be implemented. And that sounds very straight, very complicated, very well, trivial thing, but it actually makes a lot of difference. So let's see. So mesh grid essentially behaves like you have given the x coordinates and y coordinates for a bunch of points and returns actually 2 arrays. Okay. So that's what mesh grid does. It returns not one array, it takes in 2 arrays. I've given in t's and h's. Okay. T
So you're not audible.
Sorry, I just got disconnected. So let me just start presenting my screen again. Can you hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is the screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I was trying to say here is something like this. You take the t's are my x coordinates and the h's are the y coordinates now. Although, okay, sort of. That's if you just take a look at the values I put in, I put in values of 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first point here will have 1, 1, 2, 1 is 1 for each one of them. And then we will come to the next row, which will have 1, 2, 3, 4 for t's again. And instead of 1 here, you will have 3, because h is 3 for each of these points. One more down, row down, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, and then 4, 5, and so on. Now, what is very important is the t values. If you look at all the t values which you get for all the points, you essentially get 1, 2, 3, 4, the original set. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4 again, and so on. So it's really rather trivial thing. 1, 2, 3, 4 keeps on repeating. How many keep on repeating? How many times should it repeat? Anybody? For our particular case. Remember, the T's array has 4 entries, the H's array has 5 entries. Is the screen stuck? Well, let me just try stopping the presentation again. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
And can
Yes,
you see
sir.
my cursor moving around so that it's not stuck? Hopefully. The question I have for you here, can you see the Python screen?
Yes, sir.
So T now has T's array has 4 values and H's array has 5 values. So if you were to ask, put these things on a grid, like the kind that we have drawn, although I have not finished drawing the whole thing, I have not drawn all the 5 rows here. The question I have for you is 1, 2, 3, 4 is the set of values which T always has. But how many times does it repeat?
5 times.
5 times. Just as many elements for as many rows, right? The number of rows is of course number of H's. Number of columns is the number of T's. Similarly, H will have the value 1357, 13579, 13579, but repeating 4 times. And that's exactly what the mesh grid function does for you. It just gives you the 2 arrays. The array T doesn't really look very impressive. It just looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. The values of T repeated as many times as needed, in this case 5 times. And capital H It's just 13579, 13579 repeated 4 times. Why? Because there are 4 values of t. Nothing new. So apparently this is a very trivial thing to have. But let me show you why this is a very nice thing to have, this particular function. And for that, let's make it a bit more realistic. Let's say I want to plot the output, let's say for 5 years. Okay. So first let's choose a frequency of the resonance frequency. I think it was 1800 for our problem. And let's say f is the frequency. Let's say 1/3 of that. There's just an example that I'm starting from. And let's just say what I want to do is I want to plot the graph for 3 complete periods or 5 complete periods. If it's 5 complete periods, then t has to go from where to where? How big is the t for 1 complete period? Yes? Come on, what's the time for 1 complete period? The formula.
1 by f.
1 by f.
1 by f. So 5 complete periods is just 5 by f, right? So in Python, in NumPy especially, there's a very simple way of getting equally spaced numbers in an array. So what I do is use linspace. That's 5 by f is the total. So 0 is the initial time, 5 by f is the value of t. And what I do is put in, say, okay, 1000 points, 1000 data points. So 5 periods, 200 points, so that I can get a reasonably good, accurate view of what's happening. This again is pretty straightforward. All I'm doing is creating an array of the harmonic numbers. It starts at 1, stops before 51, steps of 2. So 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. So H is simply this array. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, etc. going on and on. Okay. Now, the next step would be to combine them in the mesh grid like we said. But I miss out the equal to. Now the capital T simply these times, okay, not that easy to see any longer, but the same bunch of times 0, then 8.3 into the -6, then 1.6 into the -5, equally spaced 1000 points, but that repeated over as many times as there are elements of H. Capital H is the same. 135 is a big array, so it doesn't show you all the data. It shows you the beginning and the end. So each of these is being repeated as many times as there are elements in the T array. Now the critical part. What is the good of all this? So let me just show you why this is so nice. Let's just do one thing. I have this array of capital T's and capital H's, right? What I will do is let me go. You can see what I am doing. Forget about the full solution first. Let's look at the input first. Now, the number root over -1, square root of -1 in Python? Any idea? That is, how does one write I in Python? Actually, J. How does one write this? You have done complex numbers in Python, have you? Haven't you?
No, sir.
Okay, anyway, so suppose I wanted to write 3 plus 2j in Python. How would I write that? Any idea? Yes? Remember, it's 3 plus 2j.
Complex
Right?
3,
Square root of, you could use something like complex 3 comma 2. That's actually the formal nice way of doing it. You give the real part, give the imaginary part, feed that to a function called complex, which produces a complex number. This works in Python throughout. But there's a shorter way. If you know exactly what the real and imaginary parts are, if they're just numbers, which you know, the way to write this would be simply this. 3 plus 2j. That's it. Is that okay? Do you understand? If you want to write 3 plus 2j in Python, that's the good thing about Python. In most cases, what is the most obvious thing usually works? 3 plus 2j is just this number. By the way, this one works. This one, which should be equally obvious, does not. Can anybody tell me why this doesn't work? And if you know any Python, if you know
it
any
treats
computing,
J2 as a variable.
yeah, because J2 is a legitimate name for a variable. In Python, variable names can start with letters or special characters, but never with numbers. So 2j can be confused with a variable, but J2 is a variable. Or if J2 is a legitimate name for a variable. So if you write 3 plus J2, Python is simply going to complain that I do not know anything called J2. Whereas 3 plus 2j is fine. Similarly, so if I just want to write J, how would I write that?
1J.
1j. Write J, because if you wrote J, it would think that you're talking about a variable called J. But 1j, that's a legitimate complex number, 0, 1, basically. Okay. All you do like this. The omega is 2 times pi times f. So 2 star np dot pi times all the t values that you have. Remember, you're calculating all of them in one go. So you're taking all the t values you have, you put them on. Of course, it's not e to the power j omega t. It's e to the j omega t harmonic order into 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. So that's why there's a into h. And then you divide by the harmonic order simply to get the denominator 1, 3, 5, 7, 1 over 1, 1 over 3, 1 over 5, and so on. So this is what your input is like. End of story. Now this gives you a big array. In one, remember, you have 1,000 different times, quite a few different harmonic values. All calculation was done just with one line. And it may look a bit complicated, but all you have is 4 by pi in the front, and you're calculating the exponential. This is just I, 2 pi into f, harmonic number into time. That's it, divided by the harmonic number. That's all you really need. It's an array of all these values, of a 2D array. What you want to do is, now let's go back to the array. Where was it? Yeah, now what you want to do is, for each t value, you have got these results in different rows. How would you add them all up? Remember, you don't want to add all the numbers up. There's a very simple way of adding all the numbers up. say you just use the sum function in NumPy. It just adds together all the entries in this big V's array. Not really useful if you ask me. Okay? But what you can actually do is something else. And this is very good. That is, you specify the axis. These are called that you don't really call them rows and columns. You call them axis 0 and axis 1. So when you say axis equal to 0, what you mean is you go down the 0th axis, which is this one, and keep on adding these numbers together. Not these numbers, of course, this is for the H array. I want to do it for the array V's. And then you're done. That's all. You don't need anything else. Or actually, you're done as far as your input voltage is concerned. So let's just see whether it worked. These are complex numbers. You need the imaginary part. That's it. And let's see whether this has really worked. Oops. Oh, but I wanted this. Is everybody convinced that this is working? At least we have been able to sum up the initial Fourier series and got this square wave done. You can see the square wave, right, in the graph right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now with all this explanation, it look a bit complicated, but let's note what we have really done. Let's start again from the beginning. We have created a bunch of t values for 5 complete periods. I want the output, so I've just taken 0 to 5 by f. I've chosen to evaluate this at 1000 time points. So that's it there. Then for the harmonics, I've just decided to add up to the 50th harmonic. But since it's not really 50 harmonics you're adding up, remember, it's only 25 because this is happening at events at 2. And then the next step is just calculate the mesh grid. So basically, as the keys array repeated hs times down the rows, and the hs array repeated the number of times there are number of keys that is 1000 times. And both t comma h actually are basically, if you look at the shape, both of them are basically 25 by 1000 arrays. In fact, not only t, h is also that. Both of them have exactly the same shape, which is why you can feed them in a NumPy calculation where it just does the calculation element by element, and you don't have to write any explicit loop for that. So what we did was, just write this down. This looks a bit complicated, but all this really does is give you the 4-by factor in front of the square wave exponent, the square wave Fourier series. It calculates the exponential of e to the 2 pi times the frequency times the harmonic times time, and divides them by harmonic order 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. Then the next step is simply you just sum up over the 0th axis, so that for each time value you get a sum for every one of the elements in axis 0. That is, you end up with each time value you get the complex sum. That's done. So here, this is as much you need. These are all the steps. In fact, you don't even need these two in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code, and finally to plot. You want this, and then you want plt.show, and you're done. Of course, this is not the answer. This was the input. But how do you get the answer? How do you get the result from the Fourier series, from the resonant curve, resonant circuit? So for that, you need to choose the value of Q. Okay, let me just. Okay, what value of Q would you like? Anybody? Okay, let's choose a reasonably small value. Let's say Q equals 3. Okay. And then all I will do, remember this was the original VS array which actually went into giving you the square wave. All you have to do is each individual term and divide that by 1 plus. Okay, what will go in the bracket here? What will go into the bracket here?
F by F naught minus F naught by F.
Okay, it might look like F by F naught minus F naught by F, but that would not quite be right. Can anybody tell me why? F is how much, by the way? Anybody remember that? We chose an F a while ago. What was that? We chose a F of. Come on. Okay, you forgot it. Fine. F naught was 1800 and we chose an F of 600. Now, can anybody tell me why this is wrong? What you have written here, why is it wrong?
Because it's negative.
No. Who cares? Whatever
Yeah.
is negative, it just means a positive negative phase in the numerator. It means a positive phase. No, the point is each harmonic has a different frequency, right? Remember, this is not a calculation of only one harmonic. The H array has all the harmonic orders 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. For the first harmonic or the 0th harmonic, you should have 1. That is, for that F by F0 minus F0 by F is fine. But third harmonic, the frequency is not F, it's 3F, right? Is that okay? For the fifth
Okay,
harmonic,
so
the
we
frequency is
can
5F.
put HF. We put HF over there.
What you should do is actually H into F. Remember, H is an array which has all the harmonic orders. So you just use this, and of course, when you put it in the denominator, you have to be a bit careful to put F into H in a bracket, and you're done. That's it. So your summation has been done. No, not the summation, calculation of the array. The next step is just sum up. Dot and show. So this is what the output looks like. Although the input was a square wave, the output looks like a rather wavy sine wave. Okay. Now this is 2000. This is the 2000 hertz frequency actually. One full time period. As you can see, 5 complete peaks, 5 full time periods. But there are smaller peaks and troughs in between. So can anybody tell me what's happening here? Yes. So this is what the program is supposed to show you, and then you are supposed to understand why the program shows you that. In fact, this is exactly what you will see if you will try to do the experiment. But so let me just show you what the output will look like if instead of this you started with a higher value of Q. Let's say Q equal to 100. A really good resonance circuit. Calculate the V's, calculate the sum. Now see what happens. Do you see the difference between this one and the previous one? Yes? Okay, how many complete periods are you seeing here? Can anybody count quickly? Yes. We should have seen 5 complete periods, right? How many are we seeing? This look like 5 complete periods to you.
Yeah. 15 periods.
15 periods. And it's looking like 15 periods simply because I made a very elementary mistake, which is you look at the original formula which gave us the value of T's. What did we do? What I should have done if I wanted 5 complete periods. Remember, the output is basically at the resonant frequency, primarily, with additional contributions coming up from nearby other harmonics. F0 frequency, if you want 5 complete periods, it's 5 by F0, not 5 by F. Since I took F to be 1/3 of F0, that actually was 15 complete periods for F0. If I did this and quickly repeated the whole calculation, really shouldn't take you much long to do this. But I need to calculate the mesh speed again. So that's your 5 complete period. Now this looks like a perfect sign. Why? Because only the third harmonic here is resonant and all the other harmonics are further away. And what is very important is you are using a high Q value circuit, so only the resonant one comes out large, all the others are suppressed a lot. In fact, for this kind of situation, even if you made a mess up with the phase, even if you made the error that I talked about earlier, that is, you just took the amplitude and multiplied, you would still very much get the right result because the other harmonics hardly contribute. On the other hand, if you take a smaller value of, let me just do that by just changing the Q here itself. Say the value of 3, which I took earlier, and then calculate and create the plot and show it. You see, within the first 5 harmonics, there are 5 periods, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 complete periods, but you see there's of well, not non-sinusoidal behavior going on here, but that's simply because when you're looking at F equal to 600, our F0 is 1800. That's our resonant frequency. F is equal to 600 simply means that you have 600 Hz in here The next harmonic is 1800 hertz. Next harmonic is 3000 hertz. Now 3000 and 600 are pretty far away from 1800. And for Q equal to say 100, such a sharp peak that you are going to get a contribution from the 1800, you are going to get almost nothing from 600 and 3000. But for Q equal to 3, which is a rather flat peak like this, you are also going to get substantial contributions from 600 and 3000. And that is precisely why what you see here on the graph are further higher oscillations on superposed on top of this. This is no longer a single sine wave. It's a superposition of a large sine wave with some small sine waves thrown in. Okay? So this is what you're really going to see when you do this experiment. In fact, I hope you will be able to do this experiment next semester. But when you do this, for the first few harmonics, because the Q value for our circuit that we will give you is reasonably big. Say Q value is around, let's say Q value is around 15 or so. This is a reasonably good sine wave. There is a small amount of modulation going on. That's sort of easy to sort of ignore and figure out what's happening. But on the other hand, if on the other hand, say instead of f equal to 600, you looked at a much smaller f, let's say f0 by say 11, the 11th harmonic, then would be resonant. But if you started with this particular Q value and did the calculation again, note that the calculation essentially is just these two lines, and then you see you get something which does not look like a nice sinusoid at all. And when it's keeping on decreasing, that's basically because you have not the other harmonics bring it down, then it goes up. So in fact, instead of look at just 5 periods, if you look at 50, you would see the thing showing nice huge beats. So all of you remember is your circuit, which is supposed to pick out one frequency, does not really pick out one frequency. It has limitations, and those limitations actually show up in these sinusoidal oscillations. Okay, now I will just finish today with one announcement, which is next Monday we will have a class, of course, but we will also have our first class test somewhere in the middle of the class. For not a long class, maybe 30 minutes, and the syllabus will be circuits. So diodes is not in the syllabus for the class test. The circuits would be in both DC and AC. Okay. So, by the way, this is a declared class test. Usually class tests will not be declared. So they will just take place one day or the other. Okay. Sometimes I will tell you beforehand where the class test will be, but I can often take class tests which are unannounced. And that's really bad. That's just to make sure that you keep track of what's going on. The class test will not be a difficult one. It will be a short one with 4 or 5 questions, MCQs, or short answers. But that will be sometime in the middle of Monday's class. I'm not telling you when. Okay. It could be at the very beginning, could be in the middle, could be at the end. So let me just make sure that you have heard this. So have you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You may not like this, but that's not really my concern right now. Okay, anyway. Don't worry, it's not going to be a very difficult one. And if you want, I can make it shorter. I can make it just AC. Does anybody want that? Yes? Okay, maybe let's make it a bit shorter. So Thevenin, Norton, and AC. That means in these classes we are not going to talk about. We will not have questions about two-port networks. And KCL, KVL, those are elementary things, and they don't count as separate. But Thevenin's theorem, Norton's theorem, and AC circuits. That's for test on Monday. Okay, and now I will have to hang up. Bye.